Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We have returning guest, regular contributor, the one and only Mr. Derek Johnson, joining us this evening from his abode to discuss all things going on, geopolitical, particularly in his expertise areas of law and order and wars and laws and order, as he's alluded to in his books that you're well aware. So, we're going to be getting his musings on the latest that's going on throughout the country and the world for that matter. As always, if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share as it helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. As you are probably well aware, Derek is a retired Army veteran, served the country well. He is a Christian, a country music singer, songwriter, producer, and he also has produced two great books, award-winning books, The Midnight Rider Rides Again, Part 1, and now most recently, Part 2. And I'm honored and privileged as always to have him back on the podcast, the one and only Mr. Derek Johnson. How are you doing this evening, good sir?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Just enjoying the show. So,
Yeah, it is definitely a show, that is for sure. And it seems to me that the climax and the lights are being queued up ever ceremoniously at this juncture, as I can tell by your laughter, you concur. So, Derek, you're the perfect person, as always, to ask this question. As I watch things with my audience and just analyze the scope of the the country and the world around us, and kind of just taking the temperature of the environment we're in. We're in the winter time. We're coming through the meat of the winter time, depending where you are in the country. We just had, as you know, a President Trump said a long time ago, it's going to get colder. We're going to have the worst, uh, you know, weather cold snap we've had in decades. And as usual, he was correct. And in two-thirds of the country, 2,000 miles strip from Texas to you all the way up to where I grew up in New England, all the way just stopping in Florida where I have some family. It has done just that, as everyone's well aware. Challenge becomes with that weather tends to bring a lot of doldrums. People are stuck indoors. They can't do the things they would normally do throughout the year. You have a lot of job layoffs. You have a lot of shifts and moves happening right now, as you mentioned a moment ago. And it seems like a lot of the people who are in the Trump corner or the MAGA movement or just Patriot movement is losing steam and waning because they've taken a lot of hits, which I can appreciate. Not all of them have the benefit of the hindsight that we've been afforded. So, as I said, you're the perfect person to ask. What do you say to those people right now with what you know is happening and has already happened to give them a sense of legitimate clarity and peace that it may look like the sky's falling, but in actuality, it isn't?
well, that's why you got to know all the verbiage and terminology of the sky, the elements, right? When you think of a painting picture and you use in terms like the sky and is it falling, is that cloud moving? Then you got to know the elements of that. Personally. I'm sure I was grinning right there, and even some people can read through that. But I've been harping on that a lot lately with even the people that follow me on my pages. That look, I mean, you know, I have a different way of thinking already outside of the operations, and that's what brings that to the table, my element to the table. That's what special operations loves is the unconventional and irregular warfare. Those are tactics, and there's a lot of variations and variables that go with that, but also bringing that to the table. My grandpa always said this, and this he was a Native American. He said, "Well, they'll die too." Meaning that even bad people who think they have an opinion and it's like sounds like god awful, like the liberals are doing right now. Well, they're going to die too. And are you going to go down in history, or even if you're not going down in history as a name, are you positive? Or are you negative when you go out? People around you are going to know that. So the way I look at things on the bigger picture, but the big and the little, and integrate that for where people are right now is one, you got to know the war. You got to know the battles, and you got to know the missions that are taking place. The missions add to the battles add to the war. Now, you know, you'll hear people out there talking the deep state did this, and now that's not happening. The laws and the orders that are outlined that I do outline in my book, laws and orders have always been there, but they've never been enforced like they're being enforced over the last 10 years. And it's going to, in order to see that, respect it, and appreciate it, you got to know the terminology and the verbiage of what you're watching. And so many people, by design, from the old swamp, which looks like it's still the same, but it's not. But the old swamp did this by design. And then people also have to take credit for being a little lazy, being a little complacent, because you're in the greatest country of the world. All right, you're spoiled, you know. And so there's got to be give and take on both, but they also has to say, okay, this is what took place. Who allowed it? People did. And so there's that. Now, getting into the intricacies of what's going on right now, again, if you don't know the verbiage and the terminology and how to put all those together, then you cannot appreciate where we are right now. Because I'm not laughing at people when I smile and grin, but I do laugh and grin because there is a blueprint that is as clear can get. When you do, as you say, you divorce your feelings and your emotions, and you put that aside. All right, put aside how you grew up, where you grew up, your wisdom and experience in your personal life don't have anything to do with an operation, especially if you're not a part of that operation and you don't even know what's going on. So you could have all the wisdom in the world for maybe relationships or divorces and this. That has nothing to do with this. So I'm not taking away from people's personal wisdom and personal experiences with other things in life. But right now, we're talking about a military operation. And so many people are letting their personal feelings and emotions stand in the way of what they can know. It's all there, nothing's secretive. The secret portions are things like me and the colonels and everybody else. We do know what's going on while it's going on, and we don't talk about it until it's shown to the people. And I mean, there's so many things happening like this week alone, or well, this past week, the week before, and this week. I mean, I've been validated. It's not about me, but me and the few others out there, but especially military colonels. I mean, we're 3 and 5 years ahead of everything. And there's so many validations that's been coming out, and especially some that I took some hard hits on personally, with my name being trashed on Real America's Voice and certain people with Steve Bannon, and then look what all's coming out. So it should teach people perseverance. Look, you got to be cut out for the war, the battles, the missions. Like no matter what it is in your life, President Trump. I'll tell you something personal that I heard from his best friend at Mar-a-Lago one night. And his best friend joked, he said, I'm the only one in the friend zone that can still call him Donnie. And I mean, can you really imagine? I can't because one, being a veteran, we always carry that around with us. It don't matter how old we are. If we're around someone that was a sergeant or a colonel, whoever it was in the military, we say Sergeant so and so. They're like, dude, we're not in the military anymore. But it's just something you carry around with. I would never be able to stand in front of President Trump and not say, sir. But I'm saying it, sir, from the officer side of military, sir, and commander in chief. So there's no way I would ever be able to say Donnie, Trump. And I can't even call him Trump. I just can't do it. I know too much of what people don't know that they will know. And then also what you can know that I can't do that. It is so disrespectful in my mind to call him that. So his best friend, he said specifically, he said, my friend Donnie, if there's one thing that he loves more than anything out there, it's loyalty, but also get in the ring and fight. It don't matter if you get your head knocked off, if you're getting, just whipped left and right. Get in the ring and fight. Now, like you said, there's got to be spectators always on looking, but there's a difference in a spectator looking and then those out there going, yeah, hit him, get him. That. President Trump wants, if you're going to have a voice or you're, using your voice, whatever, be a fighter. Don't be a whiner. Don't be a nagger. Don't be a Debbie Downer. Don't be a negative Nancy and all these other things, right? If you're going to use your voice, be a fighter, right? And fighters don't display that character of people wavering And even the Bible talks about that. And I'm not a preacher, but the Bible does talk about building your house not on shifting sands, right? So solid foundation. And so, if people would apply just simple principles, and President Trump used a quote that I love personally way back in 2020. Now, it had to do with COVID at that time, which was a bioweapon, but you can use that quote with anything. He said the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. So just take the word cure out and put resolution or solve it, solution, whatever word you want to put there, it'll work there. The solution cannot be bigger than the problem. So many people think that there's got to be like 100 laws and 200 orders to go with those laws. It doesn't. You need one law, one order, and then enforcement of it. It's got to be simple. And that's why, if people would go back and study some of our founders and our presidents, George Washington, John Adams has some amazing quotes. But if you'll go back and read that founder, President Trump is to the T of them more than he would be someone like Ronald Reagan or Abraham Lincoln. Now he's got parts of those, but if you go back and read the founders word for word, I mean, it. I always say world history, but you're watching world history and you're a part of it. So while you're a part of it, you should want to know the good side of it, no matter what, and no matter how bad it looks. In the social media, remember Elon Musk. Remember when President Trump left Twitter, which was called Twitter then? He left it, and he put out there, hey, they're deleting people left and right for speaking your. That was before Elon, and then Elon bought it, and then all of a sudden, anybody who wants to pay $7 a month can have a blue check. So that there's a little simple thing out there for people to see that just because you have a blue check now on Twitter or X doesn't mean that you're authentic or official. Right. So, but on the flip side, guess what they are? They're captured. Elon is getting $7 per month. I mean, you do your math on that. I went and looked that up. I think there's 1 million blue checks. Do your math on that. $7 per month. We're talking about some mega money. But also, when they're paying that subscription, names, addresses. So, now a lot of people won't like that in a lot of ways, but we're in a war right now. If you're saying something against the military and the government, especially if it's, a lot of people out there want President Trump dead, and we have to quell that. We have to get everybody back down to a quell. And so you don't want to look that way either, even though most Republicans aren't looking like that. But a lot of people are so in disarray and don't even have to be. So I'm always going to say, what's that? There's a quote out there: "Think before you speak." Mm-hmm. Well, I've doctored that up. Think, read, comprehend, think again, and then speak. And that's where we are in today's society with technology. You need to read, think, comprehend, think again, and then speak. Right. So a lot of people just need to take your advice, divorce your feelings, divorce your emotions. If you love President Trump, then you got to know he has to work with laws and orders. He has to. The first cutted, I call it cutted, but I'll use slang, but the first corner you cut, there's no integrity there. Everything has to be done to a T. So once people learn that laws and orders integrate together, then it could be something like, an executive order for trafficking, and then an executive order over here for telecommunications. You need to think, well, how do those correlate? They all integrate together because it's one big, where he's sitting, he's like flat earth, round earth. I know people are going to fight over this, but if you're sitting on the globe, right, and you're looking down at it, or you're sitting over flat earth and you're looking down at it, it works for either one. So whatever you think it is, he's sitting up here and he's got this playground, right? So they're flipping the world. I mean, we're really watching the world flip. It's gone back to the revolutionary days. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 has been reset as prescribed in the Declaration of Independence. Article 3 is what we're going through right now. That's why it's judge this, judge that, court this, court that. But see, Congress, they voted on a lot of things today, but Congress is still under a partial continuity government. And that's by law. So see, a lot of people need to go study those, and then they won't get so heated with, an article, because that's a short shelf life anyway. One article out of the bigger picture, the law is bigger than the article. So I don't know. It's hard to answer that without, you know, rambling too much. But there's a lot of ways to tell people how to calm down, but it's actually calming down and making these applicable. It's hard to get people to do that, but uh, you know, I'm just a I'm just someone who's like, look, if we're picking teams here, I want fighters. I don't want someone who's going to be negative. And if I'm doing all the work, then be a good cheerleader. I mean, I'm still okay with that, and a lot of people are out there. I'm like, okay, we'll do all the work, but we need good cheerleaders, right? Just because it seems fun to us, don't mean that it's fun when you're actually doing certain things. But hey, be over there, even if it looks grim, lie to me. That's I had sergeants like that. Hey man, if it looks bad, lie to me. you know, Make me feel like it's good and get me through it.
Yeah, totally. As Abraham Lincoln, thank you for that, Derek. As Abraham Lincoln coined, the old phrase, better to be, thoughtful and be left silent than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And as you rightly mentioned,
Exactly.
with the advent of technology and social mass media and all that, you just have people spouting off all kinds of opinions, largely based on nothing except emotions. And they're really not versed in that subject, or maybe they are versed in that subject to a degree, but they've allowed their motions to override their better judgment in certain things because things happen. People go through situations, life, and emotions run high, and it does become difficult to divorce them. I certainly acknowledge that, but at the same time, this is a war, and it's a protracted war, and you have to think with the end in mind, as Sun Tzu always talked about, right? And so we've covered that. There was a big event happening today, as you know, in DC. A number of things with Bibi there with Trump, and I think that's a lot of cloak and dagger going on. We're going to watch what happens with the Middle East, with that particularly Iran and Israel's movement and involvement with, as you know, Q said, Israel be saved for last. I get the sense that inevitability of the last is coming up with the lights queued up on Israel. But the Save America Act, which of course, for optics, barely passed in the House today, and now they're going to bring it to the Senate. How significant is, in your mind, is that initiative and that bill that's when it does pass, and what it's leading to in terms of breaking down the deep state, opening up the financial situation, bringing back the rights to the people? It seems like it's a small victory in a long track of victories to come. Is that a fair characterization to you?
Now, what was that bill again? Say that one again.
It's specifically keys in Derek on voter registration. People have to show ID,
Yeah,
have to be
that
able to
one.
show that
Yeah.
they're proof of citizenship, and no more voter manipulation and all that.
Well, I mean, you talking about tying into a bunch of things, you know, right in front of everybody. I have a slogan that people always laugh at because I always say it's right in front of you. And it is, and that's what they do. Now, you know, in a compassionate kind of way, as much as I can be compassionate, but I can be. But it should make people mad the right way. That they put things right in front of you, and then you don't see it, or you didn't dig, you didn't, you know. So when you look at whatever population, we're at 350 now, 350 million, somewhere in there. But no matter what it's been, it can't just be a few voices out there like it's been in the past, like me and my grandpa and different people. It's got to be the overwhelming majority who sees all the intricacies, not the flippage of it. And the voter, that whole thing. Speaking of John Adams, our second president, man, you talking about some quotes that tie in to where we are right now. And even though they didn't have technology, but his quotes are so keen, and I highly suggest people get on Brainy Quote and look up John Adams and read his quotes, I mean, it'll change your world in a lot of different ways, but it'll also reinforce you once you do, or well, if you already do. So there's that group of people. If you already know what's going on with President Trump, it'll reinforce if you ever have a little fuzzy feeling or something that's like wavering. But then if you're on the other side, to read John Adams and then see that the deep state, man, I mean, financial is one thing. As you know, that I mean, 1913, well, 1870s, moving forward, 1913, 29, and even all the colonels that I'm on with, who are, I mean, all special operations, many, many, many years. I'm just a low man on the totem pole compared to them, but multiple years special operations. They can paint pictures for people to see that even Roosevelt, Franklin, and then Winston Churchill and those people, that everybody's been in it to a degree, and it grew and grew and grew. The Bretton Woods, I mean, everything. When you tie all that in, NATO, I mean, everything that they established and everything they meaning the deep state and those Congresses, everything they established was taking away power from the president the whole time. They were limiting the president everywhere they could. And that's not constitutional whatsoever. And if Congress would just do their job, stay in their lane, do their job, then everything would be hunky dory with the president. And it would be that true checks and balance. It's like, if you're doing what you're doing, I'll do what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's never been that. And ironically, you know, a lot of Democrat presidents have actually been a lot more Republican leaning in policies and ideas when you look at how radical the Congresses were. Once you study and get nosedive what they were doing and seeking to do. Money, though. Money, money, money. And people being complacent. So all of a sudden, in the 90s, I started remembering that as a young kid because my dad watched C-SPAN and he watched bills being passed and all these things that most people didn't even watch. You know, and I remember started hearing the swing states, you know, it's like the battleground state. Oh, it's going to come down to Ohio and Michigan and this state. And every year it swapped to different states, right? But it was predetermined. And that was them forecasting right in front of everybody that, hey, this is all rigged. Like if they already know what states it's going to come down to and who needs what votes and this, that, then they're telling you. And that's why we've been saying, a lot of people, hey, it's not just Democrats and liberals, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about Republicans. And that's why I use like TV shows like Matlock, the original Matlock, where he really believed in his client and he proved them being innocent, right? Well, it was showing those shows sometimes, Matlock, and then you'd have the state going to back with the judge. They wanted to cut a deal. He was like, I'm not cutting a deal. My client is innocent and I'm going to prove it. So there's that deal cutting. So everybody thought all those years, Fox News, CNN, all this, that, oh, yeah, they're, you know, Republicans are standing up and to defend. They were back here laughing, knowing the people out there think this is real, right? And they were all back there. Sure, they did mudslinging, and sure, they really mudslung because they were trying to build up. But if they lost, they were still part of it. They were still getting money on the kickbacks back here. So a lot was real, but it wasn't real. And that's where the voter ID and all this flips that. And especially with technology, that's why I tell people don't fear technology. I don't like technology personally. Me personally, in my personal opinion, I'd rather go back to where we didn't have cell phones and social media. I would personally love to do that, but we're not. And the enemy wouldn't let us. See, once the enemy gets a hold of something, they're always going to be trying to make it better for them to take advantage and control of us. And that's why I like AI. We have to dominate in it because the enemy will. Whoever created it, they created it and it became known. And once something becomes known, you have to dominate in it. So what they're going to do with these watermarks and everything, I mean, we'll be able to tell easily. But especially like the military, that's why I keep, this is why it's humorous. So lightheartedly out there for the people. But like right now, there's liberals all over because of the SAVE Act. There's liberals all over X right now, and they're just annihilating. And I'm like, if if they're not bots, and a lot of them are, to get people involved with this and get people engaged where it's the bait and then switch. But for the ones that are real out there and they're upset about this, I mean, this is what's so funny is that military orders are not continuous orders. They're always yelling. President Trump, the liberals are yelling, you got to have congressional authorization to use the military. Okay, you're correct. He has that. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. He has the congressional authorization. There it is, December the 20th, 2019. But military orders are not continuous, so they answer their own rage, right? Well, why were the National Guard deployed for the 2018, 2020, 22, and 2024 elections? Now, military orders are not continuous, so it's hard for me to say, well, why would quote unquote Joe have the military there if President Trump's a Nazi, a king, and a dictator? Because if they're at the 2018 and 2020, they're still running the same kind of mission on the 22 and 24. It's the same data. They only have one role, the cybersecurity teams. They only do one thing. Now, they got a bunch of things under that one thing, but they're tracking data. They're tracking who's trying to hack, who's trying to delete, who's trying to add, who's trying to influence our elections. So military orders are not continuous. The National Guard cybersecurity teams have been out for 2018, 2020, 22, 2024. All right. So there's that. So this voter ID thing is going to flip everything, right? And we're going to have the watermarks. We're going to have all the different things that it's kind of like, well, I don't have it on me, but on your license, or even like my military ID. My military ID is a perfect example if I had it, and I don't have it on me, but it's perfect. It looks fake. It's so plastic, and you can bend it and twist it, but it's got right up under it. It's got that film on it that's got that watermark on it, and you can't duplicate that. Like I've had people look at it before you. Oh, that's gonna be a fake ID, and I'm like, it's not a fake ID, because if I duplicated that, I would be in big bad trouble if I even had the capabilities of doing that based on how our law reads and what it's going to read. So the voter ID is going to be the same way, and it's going to have its own mark. Right. So that's a big thing, but also it roots out their games they play. Right. And both sides of the aisle. It's going to root out all that. And see, once you integrate all these things and people see it and people like it and people operate in it, and it's starting to produce real results and good results for all people, once the people in the massive population see that, they're not going to want to go back. And that's the other key thing. I've heard some Democrats and liberals out there on social media saying, oh, all we got to do is get back in and reverse all these. If you see what all President Trump's put into place, well, I'd say it like I'm talking to them, but I would say, hey, your people, it took you 150 years to have what you have. President Trump's done this in 10 years, right? Everything. So, it's more than just what people think of going to the voter booth and showing an ID. I mean, we're talking about full flip, and it also protects our process of the elections. People just think you vote in November, and a lot of people don't even know about January the 6th. They thought January the 6th, the only one they know about was just because it was President Trump and Joe Biden. They have no idea that is part of the electoral process that our founders established in the Constitution. And that's every January the 6th on every election. So a lot of people don't know that. And, I highly recommend people reading the Constitution along with Title III, Section 15. You can learn a lot about things you didn't know. But as far as the money, everything, I don't talk money, and you know that, but
Sure.
The quantum system as a whole, it's quantum physics. I mean, it requires a brain that understands physics on its nth level, and so it's changing the world in a good kind of way. Now, naturally, as you and I both know, the Bible even mentions, what man makes evil, God can make for good, right? So, I mean,
Right.
people out there saying, "Oh, this is going to lead us here." No, you lead it there. People do that. Right. And like I've been quoting the scripture, not like I said, I'm not a preacher, but I love a preacher friend of mine taught me this. He said, hey, the Bible specifically says it in this order for a reason. It said the devil's out to steal, kill, destroy. but he don't want to destroy anything that's not worth stealing,
Right.
right? So if something's worth stealing, then it's also worth what for the good person fighting for, right? And so if every American would get in the prevention skill sets and learn on the front how you defend it, how you keep it, and how you prevent it from being stolen, if everybody get on that side and that mindset of thinking, then we'll be lethal, right? And we were lethal for a while with our founders, and then it started slipping. And we've had times in history where, it just kind of just was doing that. And then in the early 90s, people kind of thought with Desert Storm, they thought that, but it was actually the polar opposite. But the people, if they would have known what was going on, I think the people's spirit around Desert Storm, a lot of the people back then, I remember this as a kid, a lot of the people were like just, they were everywhere. American flags, their spirit. But if people would have known what was going on in the background, but with their attitudes, they could have squashed that. And then we could have flipped it and had a revolt then. But it didn't work that way, and here we are. So every American's got to get in that spirit of when's enough for you, right? But then there's a way to take action because this whole thing is kind of like I use, and if I can just, I know I'm talking a lot, but parents, most everybody listening, probably a parent, right? And you have a child. If you love your child and you raise your child and you're teaching them, well, if they have a knife in their hand, they're 3 years old, you go over there really fast and get that knife out as fast as you can. Well, the child's probably going to scream because a lot of children do when you take something from them that they wanted. Some don't. Some run on and play with something else, but a lot scream. Think about Americans that way, right? That's what President Trump and the military are doing. We're doing it no matter what. We're going through this. We're cleaning it out. We're going to clean it out, and you're going to benefit from it, whether you know it or not, or whether people pass on before they see it or not. Doesn't matter. We're going through this, and it's going to be a massive world history, a reversal, a flippage, as prescribed in the Declaration of Independence, exactly to a T. But Americans are going to benefit from it, and that in hopes that child grows up. There's your analogy. In hopes that child grows up and appreciates and respects what was done for them, handed to them. Here you go. You didn't have to do it. I did it for you where you'll be successful in your future. But here's how you prevent it as you grow older and when I die. And that's exactly what's taking place on the bigger level is that here's what we're doing. You get to benefit from it, but you need to get in the prevention mindset and have those skills to prevent this from happening again. And, that voter ID, it may sound just like going to the polls, but it's a lot bigger than that. And it's going to affect everything. And then also we're talking about the finances out there, all the decentralization, the banks, every one of our founders were against banks.
Yep.
And we're talking universal. Every one of our, George Washington, every one of our founders talked so negative about banks and what they do to people and minds, right? So if people would see that is already taking place, and you and I both know that, but the decentralizations happen, and President Trump, this watermark, the voter ID is going to not just be for that, but it's going to integrate into all of our other systems, and we just got to prevent it from the evil getting it. Now, it won't happen in mine in your lifetime, but it's subject to happen down the road, but it's going to be a pretty good ways down the road. But people still have to raise your children, your grandchildren, and their children on this.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I have talked about it. X22 talks about it all the time, that once we break the private Western Central Bank, once we break the cabal, which I believe in large part we have, and this is, for lack of a better term, pantomime theater playing out for the masses, right, who don't know the subtext, the laws and orders, the spiritual context of all that this entails. Once we go back to restoring the republic, which is going to be my last question for the evening in a moment, Derek, set you up there. Once we set that back, we have to teach. When I have my family, and if you have kids, and those who do have kids or grandkids, we have to teach them, okay, this is where we came from. This is what they did to undermine our entire forefathers, our entire constitutional construct, the fabric of our society, da 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 da. And we can never go back to that again. We must prevent it, because as much as we kick them out, they are going to try to come back at some point. As you said, you were kind of alluding to, 100, 200 plus years down the road, whatever the case may be. But we can cement that for our lifetime, for our, as number says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children, children's children, children. This is about building a legacy, right? That's why you and I do this. That's why our audiences got skin in the game, because it's about building a legacy. It's about finding out what's your why, what's your motivation. Some people it's spiritual, some people it's financial, some people it's geopolitical, some people it's justice, whatever it is, that's fine. But the point is, once we reset this, we can never go back. So I just really want to put a point of emphasis on that, because that is so important that you underscored that point. I'm supporting you, of course, in that. So that leads me, and as I said earlier, my final question. As we are restoring the republic, and I also want to add the fact that I know you'll concur, the true election time of the constitutional republic was actually March 4th, which isn't that far behind us in a few weeks. I believe we're going back to that, because we have to, as we reset back to that, construct under the forefathers. They gave us a great country. They gave us the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and we got, as you said, complacent, and corruption rotted in and summarily screwed it up, and now we're reversing it. There's a lot of discussion and back and forth, and this isn't about who's right, who's wrong. Okay, I'm not interested in that, but I want to get your weigh in on it, Derek. Some people feel that the earliest point for us to restore the republic is July 4th, Victory Day, on our 250th anniversary of America. Some people feel that's the exact date that it's going to happen. And President Trump, as you know, said that we're going to have a year-long celebration from this July to next year, which kind of tells you a lot of things, unpacked inside of that. What's your take on that? Do you think that July 4th is the seminal victory date, and everything that we're working towards in the next couple months is leading up to that point, or do you see something else entirely?
See both. I have two scenarios. I always joke with people, that's how I'm correct, because I always have multiple scenarios. No. But you know, I was explaining this to someone the other day about how a lot of people out there think because you don't know exactly. They say, "Oh, well, you claim you're this, and you claim you're an operator, and you claim this, but then you don't know that." I'm like, no one knows what goes on in a war room unless you're in the war room, and that's even in the military. And you can be a pretty good rank, and you can be a great soldier, and still, if you're not in the war room, you're not knowing what the commander's going to do. Then the orders come down. So it's been fun for all of us that are a lot lower than colonel, because the colonels do know generals, so they're more apt to talk to them on the phone and whatnot. So it's been more fun for us lower guys to go, okay, what are they going to do next? Because it is fun looking at what I call the military chessboard, and that's why we're 3 and 5 years ahead. But that's what special operations do anyway. But you still don't know what pieces are going to do unless you know that. But if you knew that, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it anyway. But in a lot of ways, I lean towards what I've been saying is that, well, if you're truly about everybody as a whole, and that's what our founders were. Our founders, that's why they separated religion and certain things, because they were like, look, if you want to believe in 20 gods, you're not hurting me. But when it comes to government and it comes to military, there has to be laws, orders, and a regiment. There does have to be that. But it always has to have a checks and balances all the time. You can't get lazy ever. And there's going to be things that pop up. And you need to work through it. But religion is nowhere part of that, right? And so our founders were very keen on that for a particular reason. And they were also about all people. And, people have butchered that too. Like, oh, well, why was there slavery if they believed in equality for all men? And I'm like, well, slavery was an actual part of labor back then. It wasn't viewed the way people view it now. That's why hindsight's always 2020. Hindsight can be 15-15, meaning eagle eye, and be great because me personally, I'm like, well, I would never want to go back to that. I wouldn't even want to be a farmer during that time period when there's no air conditioning and no this. So I mean, there's a lot of other reasons we can be hilarious about it, but be real. But hindsight's 2020. Well, hindsight has to be very delicately used as well, because you can't look back on history, what time period you were never at, and judge somebody either because you weren't there. You didn't know the elements as we're talking about. So see, history matters in one way, it does it from a judgment standpoint in another. Uh, so, but our founders were about people as a whole and law and order, but an establishment on, okay, this is what it has to look like. This is what a republic is. And John Adams, again, I've been mentioning him a lot, but John Adams is one to go read some letters that he wrote to certain people about the republic, and they will open your eyes. A lot of their old letters back then will really open your eyes more than the Constitution ever will. And the Declaration is just a glimpse of, hey, here's our Declaration. But their letters and their writings are very key. And John Adams is one that is a really good read for people. And I'll post some of those for people to see on my pages, and I'll send those to you where you can get those to the links, what I'm specifically talking about. But as far as a republic goes, a republic, we're not a democracy. And I tell people, I mean, James Madison, the sole author, the only author of the Constitution, in the Federalist Papers, which were promotion papers for the Constitution, promotions to the people. Hey, this is why you want to adopt it. He wrote that democracies are dangerous. And one of the quotes out there by John Adams and a few others, it is democracy will commit suicide. I mean, that is some strong language. So I tell people, look, the way it looks to me, at any time we wanted to do a military coup, a military takeover, well, our actual laws and orders read that way because military is separate from the federal government. It's a separate and completely separate. We have our own military law. We have our own orders over here. Federal, you have this. And in our unconventional warfare pocket guide, it says on there a presidential finding. Presidential. The president. Game over. So all these people out there calling President Trump a Nazi, a king, a dictator. In unconventional warfare, it says under a presidential finding and or an executive order, but not a federal executive order, another kind of executive order, that in the military, the president, we could do that. A lot of people, and I'll say certain people, I got family members that were all about it. They were like, I think we need to have this. There are people out there who believe that, and that's okay. Everybody has their thought process. But some people would love to have a military coup and a takeover where it's more visual and everybody can see it, and then the rest who don't like it, they'll get over it, is that saying is. But they didn't choose that route. And the route that it looks like they've chosen would be kind of like quelling everything and getting everything to a quell. And then the ones who aren't quelled yet, like if it's the liberals thinking that Hillary and Bill and Obama are still the greatest things ever, then baiting them, getting them baited up. And then I've said this over and over. I can't, and I'm a low man on the totem pole, but I can't exonerate President Trump. You can't. The generals and admirals can't because the liberals are trash a military in a heartbeat, right? Especially if they think the military is all about President Trump outside of looking at this thing as a whole picture. If they think anything supports President Trump, a general, a 4-star general, even a 5-star general couldn't exonerate him. So that wouldn't do the trick. No Republican could do it. The only person who can exonerate President Trump would be their people, which means that you got to have them start doing what? Praising President Trump. And as a whole, not one here and there. And it can't be certain people. Hillary, even liberals would ditch Hillary quick because she has enough bad of a record. They hang on with her enough But she has enough also that if it was just her, oh, I support President Trump the whole time, they'd be like, you old hag, blah, blah, blah. They would do that. So it has to be a whole. So what I think they're going to do is quell people, get everybody happy. When you see what the tariffs have done, when people's 401ks, when the gas is completely down, and it's not a old school what they used to do to us, as we've all known, especially if you're over 40, you know this. But one to be down here, and they're like, well, gas is down, but well, this is up, or this is up and this is down. When everything is down, and it's all unveiled that they played these games on people all these years, inflation, deflation, all these different things. When everybody's paycheck is flourishing, they're not having to work 2 and 3 jobs. They can live comfortable. They can see their friends. They can see their family. They can breathe. They don't have to worry about income tax and all these other taxes. When all this stuff finally comes to that head and people see that, one, they're not going to go back. But then two, it'll bring them down to a quell where they're more listening. They're coherent on what's going on, and they're willing to listen more and not call you or me or anybody else crazy, right? Or conspiracy theorists and all these other things as more and more and more and more comes out. And people see it, like all the voter ID right now and all these numbers that are coming out with Georgia, all the swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, everything's hitting the fan right now. They're going to be funneled where they can't argue anymore. They're going to hit this wall. Right, President Trump's pretty good with walls, right? So they're going to hit this wall where they got to either raise a white flag of surrender if they're still negative, or they get to that wall and they're like, whoa, whoa, I don't want to hit that wall. I have enough humiliation to go, I was wrong. And then they go quell themselves, right? And they listen more. So I personally think that they could do it that way to where they're getting people as happy as possible. Let's say 85% of America. Get them happy, and then reveal things to them on the bigger things. Or they could rip the Band-Aid off, as the saying is. And I think that would be awesome. I personally think if they use the emergency alert system for something good, right? And then they do what they did with the Charlie Kirk thing. I think all this was strategic. I know that was strategic from another angle, because you wouldn't have every person from the administration under one building. Even if we were where we are right now, but if we were in a real scenario and military wasn't a big deal around the world, we weren't fearing anybody, you wouldn't have them in the same building for earthquakes, tornadoes, any structure falling down. That's stupid. National security, that's stupid. President Trump, the vice president, everybody was under one building. They were doing that to get people's attention. Melania movie. Everything's in a movie. Everything's on TV. Everything's in an entertainment type setting right now. And you and I, we specifically accelerate in entertainment, right? So we know that, right? It's marketing, and people love visuals. People love entertainment. All these things related to entertainment right now. Well, I think they could do that. They get people in one building, have everybody in there, Hillary, Obama. And that's what I've been trying to tell people is that, look, what if? Just be what if for a moment. If the end goal is peace and harmony, and why is everybody so fighting? Why is everybody always mad all the time, want to fight and argue and cuss and kick and bicker and all this other? Why are you wanting to do that? If you're truly about peace, the only way to do that is to bring the big names together. All right. Now, the ones that need to be punished, okay. But there may be names that have been part of this infiltration process that I've been trying to tell people is that, look, to infiltrate something, you got to have people who look a part, who ain't the part. And that's where people have to get into, okay, what is the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal for you to keep arguing, fussing, yelling, mad, screaming, fighting with your neighbor, your family, your friends? Because to me, that's not peace. That's not harmony. That's not true peace. That's not true harmony. That's not true love. That's not true kindness, etc. All right. So what's the ultimate goal? But if Obama was one of those players, right, or if Bill and Hillary, whoever it may be, they all come in, everybody's in this building, the emergency alert flips everybody's phones, everybody's computers, everybody's TVs. The only way you get out of it, put your phone down, walk outside, go hiking, go fishing, go do something. It's the only way you're going to get out of it. But guess what? You're not going to get out of your family and your friends talking about it because everybody would be talking about it, right? It'd be a unison thing. And then they have Joe Biden, Hillary, Kamala, whoever. Why are all the commercials? There's a Hyundai commercial right now with the guy wearing the
Yeah,
mask and he takes it off,
I saw
right?
that. I saw that one. Yeah.
And the guy driving is like, I knew it wasn't. I knew that wasn't you, right? Well, what everything's being center focused around this stuff, right? And entertainment. And President Trump said this, and I know I hate it. Even full operational, I hate it. And I love military and I love strategies, but I hate it. But President Trump said what? You got to give the people what they want. People love drama. People love this stuff. I hate it. People love it. So you got to do what? The the majority, you got to get them the way they want it. And that's why if you're a patriot, hang in there, baby. It's all right. We got it. I can tell you right now, but it's all been done. Everything you're watching is theater, but they don't think that. But they had to have it that way because that's the only way to reel them in and counter psyop them in a good way. You know, psyops are not always bad. People think they hear psyop and they think that, well, couldn't you take advantage of the people that way too? Well, you could, but if you don't, and you're not, that's not the mission and the goal, and it's not for any of us. But a counter psyop, you flip everybody out. It's like reversing a code. It's like you know anything else in life that you have to reverse something out. And that's what we've had to do. The society you have to give them what they want, the way they need to see it. You bait them up and you switch them, and then when you hit that ultimate, whatever that day is. So could it be July the 4th? Could be, because that would be some fireworks. That's what I would do. But it may not be that. They may get to the 4th and massive celebration and family, friends. President Trump mentioned after that date that there'd be all these competitions, sporting events, and people in neighborhoods, communities, and towns, and athletes from all over the world coming in. So it could be to where all these nations that capitulated, it's just nations. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it may be where everybody starts doing the family thing in the community, the town, trying to get people out. Who knows? But there's got to be some kind of fireworks somehow, I think, just because some people just need to be shook to the core, and then that be the bait and switch. But who knows? But like I keep telling people, the laws and orders currently invoked right now outline a 45-47. We're not through 47 yet. So I tell people now, I don't think we're going to January the 2029 looking atrocious. The other thing is President Trump's age. June the 14th, he'll be 80 years old, which is a big celebration with anybody's life. Making it to 80 years old is a milestone. And so, in the real sense, in the real world, the real President Trump at Mar-a-Lago and Trump International and Trump Doral and everywhere else, the real President Trump, he needs to see his name fully exonerated to be able to live some quality life over here in his personal life. He needs to see his name not in all these circuses and all this other shows. So you got to keep that in mind as well. So what better time? It would be perfect. June the 14th, July the 4th, to have it to where, he rides into the sunset in the sense of, I don't think he's going away. I know he's not, but rising to the sunset with his name being completely exonerated. Because I'm telling you, I tell people all the time, I love Mount Rushmore. It is a breathtaking sight, but President Trump don't need to be on Mount Rushmore. All right. They need to keep it intact and turn around and look at the mountain behind it. And he needs his own mountain, right? Like there needs to be those guys. Grateful for them. But he needs to be being his own, being like the overseer of them, right? That's if people knew what was taking place, that is how strong and passionate you should be about this. Is that hey, no disrespect to those presidents, and definitely no disrespect to President Trump. I mean this in a good way. He needs his own mountain, So I don't know. We'll see, but July the 4th is the date. He said Memorial Day 2025 will start it, and then July the 4th in a year, every single day after that. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know, it's
Well,
got to be something like that.
well, we will see how it plays out. Thank you, Derek, for all that. I appreciate that. As we close up for the podcast, respect your time and the audience time as always. Last thoughts you have, and where can people find your work, good sir?
Well, you just gotta. I'd always tell this, and I may have told this before on your show, but one of my favorite Tiger Woods stories ever. And then you talking about a guy with ultimate respect for the president. It's Tiger Woods because his dad, I believe he made it to sergeant major in the Army, which is a high rank for enlisted. But I love the story. He was on the golf course and he had like 5 holes to play and he was like 3 shots down. And Steve Williams, his caddy, said, I knew how to motivate him. And he said, Hey, Tig, you see that little girlfriend over there of so and so, whoever it was beating him at the time. He said, you notice every time he makes a putt, she's just over there giggling and cutting up. She don't even know anything about golf. And he said, just made him mad. And he threw the club at him. And Tiger was serious now, threw it at him. And he said on hole 17, Tiger made a birdie putt to go up by 1 shot going into the 18th hole. He said, walking from the 17th green to the 18th tee box, he said he threw the club at me, threw it at me where I could catch it. And he said he just slapped me on the rear end. He said, she ain't smiling now. Right. So that's the attitude to me that everybody should portray right now. It's like, look, uh, the people who just don't want to get right, the enemy out there who just don't want to get right, especially if they're not bad criminals, but they're just, being negative and being hateful and spiteful no matter what, then hey, just be like, you won't be smiling for long, right? So for whatever they think's going on, and don't let it affect you, right? You live your life, right? But you can live like me. You can be smiling, grinning, happy, peaceful. I hunted every single day, just about a deer season I could this year, just to get out. And I mainly slept more on my deer stand than I actually hunted because I can sleep better. But hey, I'm peaceful because I know what's going on. But I've been strategically put here doing what I'm doing, and it's been a blessing. It's still work in a lot of ways, but it's a blessing. But I'm still at peace because I know what's going on, not just because I know what's going on operational. But you can be that way. It's designed for you to be that way. So you got to take John's advice. You got to divorce your feelings, divorce your emotions, learn the verbiage, learn the terminology, the index, the glossary. Then once you learn those, you can dig deep into President Trump's laws and orders, put them together, and it creates that visual. He gave you a visual. He gave you the visual, 45-47. So once you put that together, I mean, I'm telling you, you can't unsee it, you can't unknow it. And your family and your friends may not like you anymore because you'll be talking about it all the time. But that's what you're supposed to be doing. So anyway, Linktree is my best. There's so many fakes and frauds out there, but there's even a fake Linktree now. So you do have to be careful now on the making sure the letters are correct, not one too many, and not so you got to be careful with that. So it's Linktree, LINKTR period EE. So the period goes before the 2 E's. As if you were doing a .com, the period goes before the 2 E's. Linktree, and then it's / 1776 Nation. And that pulls up all my accounts. And if you're looking for books, then you go to the website if you want them signed. If you don't want them signed, you want them quick, a birthday or Christmas, something like that, you need it quick, then Amazon is the best bet for that. So
Very cool. Thank you, Derek. We'll leave those links as we always do in the description below and in the video as I said, customarily do. And folks, as you know, one of the key sponsors for our channel, I know Derek will concur with this, precious metals. It's been God's money for over 5,000 years. It's definitely constitutionally based. And with the dips that are going on with silver, couldn't be a better time to get into it. Get in any time's a good time, but especially with these dips, President and his team are giving us a buying opportunity. So we humbly recommend you take advantage of that. As our chief sponsor, you will see the link below in the description. If you are looking to get precious metals, add to what you have, or if you have a 401k or an IRA conversion, you want to roll over. Noble Gold has been one of the most trusted people for years. They are ranked #1 by Gold Magazine, one of the most trusted companies with which to work in this space. So you look below the link in the description or the video. noblegoldinvestments.com/JD Metals is my promo code. It'll give you access to the best pricing and support and service. They do have their own vault, so they can guarantee what they have in store and deliver in a timely manner. Or if you want to use the phone, you can call them at 877-646-5347. Again, 877-646-5347, and you can talk to any of the licensed consultants. No pressure, no haggling, no any of that. Just very straightforward, going to consult you and work with you in the best direction that you're looking for. So Noble Gold Investments, again, key sponsor, we recommend for that, and the link below in the description. Derek Johnson, thank you for joining us, good sir. We appreciate your support. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time and attention and energy. We pray that you have a blessed rest of your evening, and we will look forward to speaking with you again shortly.
Sounds good. Good to be here. See y'all soon.
Thanks again.